Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and each and every week I sit down here and answer your questions. Now, if you have a question, and this is a question and answer driven podcast, please send them to podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. That's podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. Let's get started. Got a lot of questions today, so let's see if I can do my best. Robbie asks a good question. I have a question about programming 2 days a week armor building formula. This question has already been answered in the follow-up, and I always joke about the title, Armor Building Formula 2, but I'm going to cover the question for you. I'm a 33-year-old male who played competitive basketball for nearly 2 decades before transitioning to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the last 10 years. You're 33, you played professional basketball for 2 decades, and now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the past 10 years. You're 33 with 30 years of experience. I think I might misunderstand you. I train Jiu-Jitsu 3 days per week, and I only have enough time and energy to lift twice per week. Sure. I was wondering if running the armor building formula twice per week instead of the regularly programmed 3 days a week would still allow me to gain some mass and strength. What modifications would you make to the armor building formula to decrease the training days from 3 days to 2? My goal is to gain about 5 pounds of mass while still training jiu-jitsu 3 days per week. Being a skinny former basketball player, I've always had a hard time putting on mass despite eating an exorbitant amount of calories and doing various forms of strength and conditioning. From my experience, Robbie, you don't have to worry about putting on weight. Nature, or at least the American diet, will do that for you. Thank you for taking your time and help. You're a huge inspiration to me in my lifelong fitness journey. Well, thank you very much. So the first thing I would say, I have a follow-up called the Armor Building Formula 2. And again, I have to make the joke about what a terrible title. You can find it at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. And I have basically written the entire book to answer this question. But one of the recommendations I would do, there is a companion workout, actually the original armor building workout. I now call it the RBC, because you have to have acronyms in this day and age, the running back complex. And it's a combination of double kettlebell cleans and double kettlebell front squats. And you could probably, my barbell brothers and sisters, those of you who've ever done power clean front squat, you know the feeling you get when you do these workouts. So what I suggest in the book is the RBC one day, and the next day the high rep hypertrophy workout with just presses. The RBC followed by the workout. Now, it's not the armor building formula, but it's a reasonable way to stack those two workouts back to back next to each other. In your case, if you feel like all you can do is just the kind of an abridged ABF, I have no issues with it. I want to say I've talked about this. I'm sure I discussed it at the DanJohnUniversity.com forum, and I know I talked about it at Reddit, but one thing you can do is just go 2 days a week. So you'll do the armor building complex. I would keep that maybe after your third, jiu-jitsu workout a week. So you finish on the mat and then walk over and do the armor building complex then. And the only reason I say that is I don't want the ABC draining you from what you're doing on the mat. And then maybe either on day 1 or day 2 after you finish on the mat, go in and get the high rep press day. So maybe I'm just going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday on the mat, walk off, high rep press day. Wednesday on the mat, nothing else. Friday on the mat, ABCs, and just repeat that. I don't think it'll be boring, but when you're chasing, and this is a classic chasing too many rabbits thing. Trying to prepare for a sport that is dictated by body weight while trying to put body weight on is always a difficult thing. But I think it's a workable program. On the other 4 days, I would suggest get your walking in, get your mobility in, and also if I were you, I'd spend at least 20 or 30 minutes either reading books on jiu-jitsu or watching videos and trying to train up here for what you're going to do on the mat. Fun question. The downsides of a 2-day-a-week program like this, the downside is that, hypertrophy and gaining mass does depend on, obviously you already figured out the calorie part, but you do have to, ask your body to adapt. And you ask your body to adapt by, getting in the weight room and putting plates and on the bar, adding, going to bigger kettlebells, sliding over bigger dumbbells, adding a rep when you can. When you stale out, change the exercise slightly. When you then add weight, add reps. When that stales out, you change. With something like this, you're not going to have a lot of those variations, which is going to cause less adaptations. It's doable, it's workable. I believe it'll go well, but you're going to have to get back to me quickly and let me know how it's going for you. Okay, thank you. We have a question from Mike. Hi, Dan. I recently bought a pair of 20 kilogram kettlebells in preparation of starting the armor building formula sometime soon. I did it twice with borrowed bells and fell in love with the simplicity and short duration of the workout. So I bought the book and chewed it up. I now have 2 questions regarding it. A version of the barbell armor building formula allows for workout 2 to be guns and buns focused. Any issues with doing that for the kettlebell version? I have a barbell and dumbbells at home to accommodate the lifts. So now you're running down a different road than, so you want to do the armor building formula with kettlebells with the barbell variation. The reason we did that with on the armor building formula for barbells, why on that one program we added that optional day, is because doing the barbell clean and press followed by the front squat is really hard. So for those you didn't purchase the book or understand it, with the barbell you go clean and press, 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 clean and press. 8 clean and presses. On that last press, you bring it down, then you start doing front squats. It really is. It is exhausting, and it does demand a lot from your body. And on the other day, you do the clean and press day. So on that middle day, I recommend buns and guns. If you're gonna do this the way you're trying it, the only way I think you could logically do it is on the press day, add the buns and guns workout. The buns and guns, it's a hip thrust, goblet squat, a deadlift variation. You can add ab work to this if you want to make it 4 exercises back to back to back. Sometimes I just do hip flexor stretch as my 4th exercise on that. And then the guns is just doing, a bicep and a tricep exercise. For those of us who never really train like bodybuilders, if you ever want to make an elite thrower happy, have them do curls and triceps work. It's just such a joy. It's just things you really don't do. And any of you who think that you're going to throw the shot far by doing skull crushers, you really need to rethink your thinking. So I think that's the way to go on that. Add it to your the press day on the ADF with kettlebell program. Question 2. I turned 40 in May, and I have a goal of nailing 20 strict chin over bar pull-ups on that day. I'm currently sitting at 15, give or take, on the day. How would you incorporate training for this goal into the armor building formula and in a world where I just want to hinge a bit more on day 2? So you take a very simple, straightforward program like the armor building formula, you add a barbell training day to it and a pull-up training day to it, and then in a few months, Mike, you're going to complain about an injury. At least that's historically what happens. Adding pull-ups and chin-ups to the armor building formula has been covered in Armor Building Formula 2. It's available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore, and I go into great depth about it. I think, and this I think the best day to add the chin-up pull-up is on the press day. To me, it's always been a natural to push-pull as a workout. There's nothing new under the sun about that. But for me, it was always very natural. There's something like I have my Friday workout. I do military press and chin-up, and I find the combination really delightful. The other day I was doing, after that, I do a tricep exercise and a rear delt exercise on the TRX. So I do tricep extension on the TRX, and then I turn around and I do T's and Y's, both to, whatever failure means. Usually it's when I burn, and when I stop enjoying it, that's when I stop, I guess. Adding the chin-up pull-up to the high rep press day might be a good answer. I'd be a little careful with trying to follow the numbers exactly, but I think at least 1 or 2 sets, it would be interesting to do 2 presses, 2 chin-up pull-ups, 3 presses, 3 pull-ups, 5 presses, 5 pull-ups, 10 presses, 5 pull-ups. Now it gets you to 20, which is also your goal here. Mike, you have a goal of getting 20 strict chin-ups. It'll take a little bit, that set will take a little bit longer, and I think it'd be an interesting thing to do, say you're doing 60 reps of the press, 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10. Maybe 1 week, do the 2, 3, 5, 10 with the pull-ups. 2 weeks later, maybe longer, do 2 rounds. So 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10 with the pull-ups too. And then occasionally maybe, try 3 rounds. That'll be 60 total pull-ups and workout. That's a lot of pull-ups. And I'm just guessing that if you can get yourself to do 2, 3, 5, 10 3 times in the pull-up, there's a real good chance you'll be able to get your goal of the 20 over the chin pull-ups on your 40th birthday. So thank you, Mike. We have a question from Clayton. It's also the name of an elementary school close to my home. I've heard you say that to go from a sanitary lifestyle to 15 hours of exercise a week, that you would increase your life expectancy by 50%. Clayton, I don't remember ever saying that at all. The research, and I get this from Spring Chicken by Bill Gifford, who trains at my gym. It's 100 minutes a week, but increasing your life expectancy by 50%. I'm 68. That would give me 34 more years because I did pull-ups. I don't know if that's true. With that being said, I remember Dan Lieberman, and I've got his book right there, a Harvard professor that studies exercising, shared that exercise isn't a new concept compared to human history and to those in tribal communities. A typical hunter-gatherer works about 2.25 hours every day, and it's not really strenuous. They have to focus on effective caloric use. And the rest of the time is spent sitting, hanging out for about 10 hours a day, but getting up frequently to do chores around the village or camp. He shared that little kids don't exercise, they just play at intervals. When they're tired, they take a break, and they're usually ready to play again. They play. So my question is, if you do manual labor for a living, spending 40 hours a week walking and lifting, then you should already be 50% better than those who have lived a quiet life, only exercising 15 hours a week. Thus, you won't need to add 15 hours of exercise to your weekly schedule. I don't know where you got this 15 hours a week. Even when I was an elite athlete, I don't think I trained 15 hours a week. And, I was a really good Highland Game athlete. I was a very good discus thrower, Olympic lifter. Training 15 hours a week is a lot of time, even for someone who's doing well in the sports. Thus, you would need those extra 15 hours exercising weekly schedule if you do manual labor for a living. So finally, based on this 15 hours of exercising, I doubt I ever said that. 15 hours of exercising increase your life expectancy by 50%. The formula for longevity could be eat only the amount of food you need, exactly, caloric. Calories are king. Don't consume poison, good point. drink water, sleep, keep your waistline no bigger than half your height. And I'm there right now. Very happy with that. Stay on top of your health care. Add some strength training 2 to 3 days a week. Some mobility work with leisure walks, rocking, or play. And then either do 15 hours of physical work or 15 hours of exercises. What are your thoughts? My thoughts, Clayton, are that I don't, this extra 15 hours of exercising keeps throwing me off. But the truth is this, folks. Listen, your mom and your grandma were right, okay? If you get thirsty, drink water. If you're tired, sleep. If you want to go have fun, play. Your calories are important. You cannot, like last weekend I was in Disneyland watching people eat just so many calories. And then literally in many cases, people my age get on these motorized vehicles and then drive around the park instead of walk. You can't consume a lot of calories and then drive a motorized vehicle if you want to stay in shape. My mom, when we were acting up around the house, she'd say, go outside and play. Go outside and play is still the best advice I can give anybody about anything. You get your vitamin D for free from the sun, you hang out, you learn to play, you learn to correct things. I think, just a small little riff right here, but I think my generation might have been one of the last to just play. We had to constantly adapt rules because we didn't have enough people to play. If we had 8 people and we wanted to play a game of baseball, we weren't organized. None of us had uniform on. So we had things like invisible man on second. We had pitcher's hands. We had, for one thing, when we're hitting, you had to designate what outfield you're going to hit it into so they could put someone in outfield. And if you hit it in the other 2 outfields, it was an out. So, if I got on first base and then I got pushed to second, then I got pushed to third, and it was my time to be up again, we had to say invisible man. So some of those rules are amazing. And so then we would argue about things, whether it was foul or fair, but then we would make deals and talk, and not only learn to play, but we learned the basics of, the legal system. We learned the basics of civics, of living in a unit. And I think those are a lot of things that have been lost. I really do have great respect for Lieberman's work. I'm a big fan. I also like Sinclair and a number of the other ones in the books. Sometimes I think, and there's a lot of people who are, they're real influencers now by saying you should lift weights. And there's that one challenge you do where you try to do the morning routine. I've only seen it once, and I didn't watch the entire thing, but the person has a 1-hour morning routine. There's a show called American Psycho where the guy has a very ingrained morning routine, and it's fascinating to watch. And of course, as you're watching it, you got to remind yourself what this guy does for fun later on in the movie. It's not very normal. But if you're getting your sleep, you're drinking your water, you're keeping your calories appropriate, you're getting your protein in. For most people I interact with, those are the biggest game changers by far. Now, as a strength coach, I have to also say, you want to lift weights because the importance of maintaining and building lean body mass. And then in my own experience, I got to tell you the importance for go out and get a walk. Like one of my real mentors in this field, Rusty Moore, taught us years ago with his visual impact series, after you lift, go for a walk. I get up in the morning now and I go for a walk just because I'm trying to change gears from sleeping to working. After I lift, Mike and I and the gang, we all go for a walk. And then very often I'll take an afternoon or post-evening walk. And if I have to make a phone call to a friend, I'll do it while walking. But I would not get too into this. And if I did say 15 hours a week of training increases your longevity by 50%, I must have been joking, because that just, if I get this 100-year-old to start working out 15 hours a week, is he gonna live to 150? And if that's true, folks, let's get out there and start exercising right now. I hope I answered your question. That was interesting. Okay, we have a question from Sean. It's a short question, but I like it. I never realized how intensive weighted carries can be with heavier weights. I completed 5 sets of weighted carries with 35-pound dumbbells, 10 yards down and 10 yards back. That's interesting. What is the best length of break between sets for muscle growth and stamina? So, Sean, I've said this so many times. I say it in the DVD that I made about loaded carries called Carried Away. I don't know if it's still available. If it is, it's on Target Publishing. It's a fun memory. It's the old house. I think I'm training with Ben Tuma. Nothing but great memories there. One of the things I've said over and over is on loaded carries, every workout, switch out the exercises, the length, and the load, and even the duration. Rest periods. In my workshops, I have a picture of a guy. I love it, and it's always it says, "What muscle does this build?" And the guy is passed out basically on Judy, which was our 150-pound sandbag. He's still hooked to the sled, and he doesn't know if he should throw up or pass out. I mean, for him, the duration I'm waiting on that is until his stomach settles. So rest periods for me is the most, I'll say this candidly, rest periods are the least important thing I think we talk about in the weight room. Now I know there's magic to some rest periods. Like I'm a real fan of doing 3 sets of 8 with exact 1-minute rests, because and that's part of my transformation program. And the reason is because we're judging the load by the 3rd set. And so we're just trying to figure out how strong you are over maybe a 4-minute period with them, 2 1-minute rests. You do a set of 8, 1-minute rest. You do a set of 8, 1-minute rest. And then that last set of 8, you're still dealing with the accumulated fatigue from the first 2 sets. So that allows you to keep the load reasonably lighter, but you're still chasing all these other qualities. As a track and field coach, rest periods, you just need to be ready to go by the next event. If you run a 42-second 400 meter world record, I don't care how long it takes you to recover, you're now the world record holder. I noticed when I deadlifted heavy those few times on those bets, I noticed that it took me a while to recover from that heavy deadlift. The fact that I didn't train for it probably is another factor. With loaded carries, I like to go and just get the workout done. One of my favorite loaded carries workout is we just carry everything out to the front here. My neighbors must just love what I do. So it'll be a down and back. It's probably 50 meters, 165 feet down to my corner and back. So you'll do a left-handed waiter walk out, right-handed waiter walk back. You'll do suitcase carry out, suitcase carry back. Rack walk out, rack walk back. The trap bar farmer walk out, turn around, bring it back. So that one's a little harder. Heaviest sandbags we have carried out and back. And then if we have enough equipment, enough people, maybe throw on the 60-pound ruck and do the waiter, the suitcase, and the rack. And if you still feel like going, you do the ruck, the weighted vest, the ruck, with the heavy farmer bar out and back. And that's it. There's your workout. Now, that workout could take, depending on how many are doing this, how long. I mean, probably half an hour. So we didn't do very many rounds, but it still took a long time. Personally, I would say on that list, the things I struggle the most with is the vested, the rucked, a rack walk is the hardest thing. The ruck rack? The ruck rack carry is the hardest thing I do on that, for me personally, because I'm still not there yet with this kind of strength. So the big answer is, it depends. It's going to be personal, and if you're varying every workout with the movement, the load, the length, it's going to be even harder to answer. I like to go when I don't even know what fully recovered means anymore. I don't know if I ever have. A good example is, I remember we're playing high school football, and we were on defense. We held them, so whatever, 3, 4, 5 plays on defense. They punted. Jeff Yock took the ball down for a touchdown, so 6 plays. A punt return touchdown, so 7. PAT 8. And when we lined up for the kickoff, I was still kind of breathing hard from the celebration and the PAT. We sprint down the field on the kickoff. One of us is offside, so we got to do it again. And he, I'm 16 years old, high school football player, tired. And when we lined up for the second kickoff, I remember talking to some of the other guys. It was like, oh, this is crazy. We had been training this for months, but it was the combination that playing defense got me one kind of tired. Punt return got me a different kind of tired. PAT block got me a different kind of tired. Sprinting downfield, bumping into people got me a different tired. And then we had to do it again. I like to use that image when I explain it to my athletes about what recovery means, because there is deadlift recovery versus 400-meter recovery versus marathon recovery. And they're all different enough that it makes me hard to explain what rest periods are. Now, for those of you in the bodybuilding world, you have it, you guys have a different template, some different clarity. I think there's magic in certain kinds of rest periods. My 3 sets 8 with a minute, I always found that to be really an informative thing, because if I go up 10 pounds in any of my transformation program lift, I know that good things are coming. So I hope that helped. Rest periods for loaded carries are going to be as varied as loaded carries. Thank you. We have a question from Steve. I know that you have come up with many variations of swing, goblet squat, push-up workouts to include my personal favorite, the Coyote. The Coyote Point Kettlebell Club. The PDF is available at danjohnuniversity.com. It's free. Enjoy it. The Coyote strike me as a great go-to and repeatable workout. I did notice it is missing the pull element. What are your thoughts on adding the TRX row to the Coyote? Perhaps matching the push-ups. Well, you can certainly, so I don't agree with you. I think the swing, the kettlebell swing, is a really good pull exercise. Many of us who listen to my podcast are still stuck in that 1975 Frankenstein's monster concept that the body is even with my high school kids. So this is leg day. Every day is leg day. What muscle do you use when you run over the middle of the field, you catch a football, and you get pounded to the ground? You use all your muscles. What muscle do you use in the snatch, the clean and jerk? Honestly, what muscle don't you use in the clean and press? I think I'm a believer that the body is one piece. Now, I got this from John Jerome, and I read his book, Staying Supple. Oh gosh, I was coaching, and I made notes about my offensive line in the back of my original copy. So I know that was my team from 81 or 82. I was thinking, and I made some notes. So in John Jerome's book, he says the body is one piece. And and it's the great insight, because, he was a guy who was a collegiate swimmer. And then one of its books is called Staying With It, where he talks about coming out as a master's athlete and relearning all the lessons of being an athlete. And I believe he actually improved on his collegiate times, which is pretty amazing. That book helped me because, as many of you know, I say it a million times on the podcast, my best year as a discus thrower was at age 47. And honestly, if I'd have known in college what I knew as a 47-year-old, I'd have thrown a lot farther my whole career. So I think the swing is a full body, a full exercise. I also think that the push-up for most people is a great exercise, and I'll tell you why, Steve. It's because to do a push-up, you have to do it down there, which is the ground. I'm pointing to the ground for those of you listening. And getting up and off the ground is the best part of the workout. Personally, Steve, I think you should investigate the humane burpee, which as much as I love all the variations of the swing push-ups that we came up with at the Coyote Point Kettlebell Club, the best was, and Dan Martin called it the humane burpee. That still sticks as the best program I think we came up with there. Now remember, we also would get together and we would do the warm-up is the workout, so we would do a whole bunch of mobility work, stretches. Nowadays, I would have added more. I hadn't met Tim Anderson yet then. I would do a little bit more original strength. We did loaded carries. We did all kinds of stuff. Your idea of adding the TRX row our family is just great. I have no issues with it. It's interesting though, the first time I ever trained with a suspension trainer was in Coyote Point when we hooked it up to a tree and we played around with it. And my first thought was, I just don't get why you would spend money on this thing. But it was after when I did my first single arm row, that's when I said, oh, I get it. This is why you buy this thing. The T, the Y, the I, and the single arm row is why you have, I think, why you have suspension trainers. So I would say, Steve, I like your idea, I like your addition, but at the same time, try to rake yourself out of that Frankenstein monster thinking a little bit. Okay, thank you. Good question, and I enjoyed answering it, so yeah. Johan asks, I love pressing. I love barbell presses and kettlebell presses, overhead bench jerks, and all kinds. I also love deadlifts and cleans. The overhead press and deadlift is how I measure progress over time. And I got to tell you, gentle listeners, if you're going to measure progress, I would say the press and the deadlift, the overhead press, the military press and deadlift might be the two best thoughts I've heard in a long time. So thank you, Johan. Unfortunately, I'm a pole squatter. For those who don't understand it, I talk about that in my book, Easy Strength Omni book. I talk about it to death there. And you can find that on danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. It's a massive book. It is very big, and I hope you enjoy it. My presses and hinges, trudges, and stalls, while my pull-ups and front squats take off like the Saturn V every time I sneeze. Is there any hope for us pull squatters in the press? How do you work those treasured weaknesses? So it's funny, you say your press is your weakness. Norb Szymanski famously answered, how do I improve my press with this? Okay, now lean in, gentle listeners. How do I improve my press? Norb taught us, press! The only answer to improving your press is to press. If you are a pull squatter, I would recommend pressing at every workout, but I didn't say heavy. I said to practice the press. If you're a kettlebell person, and I see that, you can do seesaw presses as part of like day one's workout. Let's just say 3 times. Day 2, you could do single presses, and day 3, the day you do the barbell press. If you want to add in another pressing session in a week, which is not a bad idea, make it change levels. Do half kneeling presses. If you want to move to a 5th, play around with something like one of my favorite teaching devices. This is, I tell you, the real value of the kettlebell comes in this one exercise. It's called the waiter press. And it's when you grab the globe, not the handle, but the globe, and you press. Because if you have any of this seesawing or moving or shaking, the bell just starts to run away from you. Someone's going to mention the bottoms up press. That's great too. But I think the bottoms up press is a wonderful lift, yes. But it does take a lot of practice, takes a lot of safety, and make sure you protect your dental work. But the globe press, as it used to be called, or now we call the waiter press, you hold the ball in your hand and just press. Real hard to go heavy on that. Every rep has to be done correctly, because otherwise the bell will run. The half kneeling press is also pretty easy because you are in that kind of, it's not terrible, but it's a bit more of a constricted position with your knee on the ground. Try those, and I think that's the answer, Johan. And by the way, thank you, Johan, for saying that Johan reminds us that if your military press and your deadlift are going up, good things are happening. Okay, thank you. Hard to cheat on both of those exercises. Military press done strictly. Hard to cheat on any of those exercises. I don't know a lot of cheats for a big deadlift. I just don't. All right, good question. Thank you. Okay, so Tom has a question that comes up sometimes. Tom says, could a kettlebell swing's what the heck effect include program gain, the already incredibly well prepared Novak Djokovic 38 an edge to help defeat Alcatraz and Sinner to reach the mythical 25 slam total? Tom, I absolutely have no idea what I just read, but I did my best, okay? Could be fun to discuss, and I really do want Djoko to do it, but his legendary physically resilience and reaction times on returning serves are inevitably waning at age 38. Oh, it's a tennis question. All right. My knowledge of tennis is right up there with my knowledge of elite men's field hockey. Not real high. The what the heck effect. Would it help? Now, it's interesting because don't forget, Pavel became famous not only with his coffee meeting with John Duquesne, where they decided to start selling kettlebells and putting the books together, but also because he was helping a very famous at the time female tennis player whose name dropped right out of my head. One of the things that they did were swings. Now, do I think kettlebell swings, would help a tennis player? Well, I would say this. Maybe at his age, with the wear and tear on the knees and the hips that you get from and back and shoulders. I mean, tennis at the elite level, because of those hard stops, is really is hard on the wheels. I would suggest, and I like your question, Tom, but we're going to ratchet it one step down. I would say hip thrust might be a pretty good thing, especially the kind of hip thrust we do at my gym, where you have the elastic band here, the Dynamics band, where as you're doing them, you're squeezing that band. So if I'm laid on my back, I'm squeezing the band so that my abdominal wall is really active during the exercise. The reason I think the hip thrust with the active ab is that you're not going to have to worry very much about teaching a new technique. When you're an elite athlete and you add something, I mean, we're looking at, especially in elite tennis, I mean, the difference between victory and loss can be that small. And I worry about if I teach you something new here, and they're great athletes, they pick things up like this. I worry that by teaching that, I might be taking away from some other quality you need. So I think maybe the hip thrust would be a great thing to add. As well as, I got that thing called the perfect workout, but if you did something as simple as the hip thrust, half kneeling presses and suitcase carries for a 38-year-old athlete, I think you would get the benefits of the what the heck effect. Anytime with an elite athlete, you add something new, but it's lightly dosed. It's like, I remember when someone told me to add cinnamon sticks to chili. I thought, I don't get it. And before serving, you pull the cinnamon sticks out. But it adds a smell and a taste to it that's really good. When Jeff Hemingway told me to put peanut butter on hamburgers, I remember thinking, you're insane. It's actually really good. So what we're thinking here is we're thinking peanut butter or cinnamon sticks. We're not thinking massive change. I'm not telling someone on the carnivore diet to become vegan. I'm just saying, add cinnamon sticks and peanut butter. Okay, it might help, and it might not, because man, of all the things I've ever tried to overcome in my career, age, was the hardest by far. So, hey, fun question, okay? Thank you. Robert asks a question that I think all of us should really ask ourselves all the time. Hi, Coach. I'm soon to be a 72-year-old ex-jock, still fairly active. Good for you. No physical handicaps to speak of, although I've had a triple bypass in 2012. You can always tell an ex-athlete. You know, I was with Brett Jones at the RKC one time, and when I was taking the course, and he said, you got to review all your injuries. He turned my time, and he goes, do you have anything? I go, no. He goes, I thought you had a whole bunch of surgeries. And I said, oh yeah, those are behind me. I thought you meant injuries, you know. That's how I know you're an athlete, because only a former athlete would say, oh yeah, just a triple bypass, but you know, yeah. Recently, we helped a daughter move into a new home. No problems, but I hurt in places I hadn't in a while. So I decided to incorporate some hex bar deadlifts into my workout routine, along with more kettlebell workouts to round out the dumbbell workout I do now. So hex bar, kettlebells, dumbbells. My question is, what would be the best way to do it? As you know, at my age, the real question isn't if you can do a workout, it's what the best workout I can recover from. Well, I'll say this. You're between ages you're my brother Phil's age, who's no longer with us, sadly, but you nailed it. So my brother Gary is a couple of years older than you, and he still does the trap bar, hex bar deadlifts, and he's a big fan of them. He's been doing them, oh gosh, now I got to say, I was going to say a decade, but it's probably longer than that. And that's one of his core lifts that keeps him going as a master's hammer thrower. So if you're going to do the hex bar deadlift, I would say, person, I think he's tried easy strength for a style for a while, 3 sets of 3 hex bar, and slowly over time nudge the weights up. So if you're doing, I don't know how to say this, but if you're doing 100, and it doesn't matter kilos or pounds, I don't want you to go 100 to 200 to 300. I'd like you to see 100 with 3 sets of 3. Okay, that's not a problem. Nudge it up, after 1 or 2 workouts, nudge it up to 110, 120, take your time nudging the weights up. When it comes to your dumbbell, kettlebell work, I wish you would have given me any ideas with this, but personally, I would stay away. I was about to say the ballistics until I got a chance to see you train. But since I can't, the overhead press family is your friend. Hex bar deadlift and the overhead presses. Now, with kettlebells, there's so many variations. In my armor building formula, with the doubles, I recommend 4. The double press, the classic seesaw, the really hard one called the touchdown press. That's where you start in the overhead locked out position. You bring one down, one up, bring the other down, up, and you stay in that. That's what gets you, is the fatigue. Or in the strict alternating press, where you're in the rack position, you press up and build it down. With singles, you can do single hand, which I think is one of the best. The single hand kettlebell press is in my little buffet of the best exercises you can do. You can also do the waiter press, the bottoms up. You can do half kneeling. You can do floor press. You can do one arm bench press. You can press. Hex bar deadlift and press. Those are the 2 big ones. I'd love to see you also add in a suitcase carry. I'd also like to see you add in loaded carries, because when you notice you got really sore moving, helping your daughter move, moving is one of the best ways to prove that loaded carries are wonderful. If you move somebody and the boxes weigh from, let's say, 20 to 60 pounds and there's 2 flights of stairs, you're going to discover all the reasons you should do loaded carries in that day. And you'll also learn a lot about your ab wall. So I would say this: the meat of the program, trap bar, deadlift, the overhead press, the suitcase, farmer walk stuff. From there, do what you can do. If you feel like doing dumbbell or kettlebell rows, add it. If you have another exercise you like, add it. Those will be more of the salads, and I'm already getting bored of this thing I'm saying. But make sure you have those core lifts that you're doing like easy strength with, and you're trying to build up over time. The other things you splash in appropriately. At your age, make sure you're still walking, which obviously you are because you help your daughter move. Keep the walking in and keep mobility in, and I think you'll be doing just fine. The key, and you said it brilliantly, it's what you can recover from. I was on the phone not long ago with my coach, Dick Nottmeyer, whom, as everyone knows, I love. And he was telling me about, lifting weights, deep into his 80s and early 90s. And you just constantly, have to work around things. If you got a busted shoulder, you have to work around it. If you got a busted knee, you got to work around it. You got a busted hip, you got to work around it. I hope that helped, and I'm really happy that you're still training. I'm right behind you. I'm 4 years behind you, and hopefully I'll be still training at your age too. So thank you. We have a question from Neil. Neil says this: recently I began the even easier strength protocol because I feel I need to switch up programs. My question/observation is that I seem to switch up programming instinctively every 6 to 8 weeks this calendar year. Just out of curiosity, I counted the individual workouts, and it appears that between every 38 to 42 workouts, I feel the need to switch things up. Have you found this common in training in your experience? I found this rabbit hole a bit ironic because I just started the 40-day workout. Yeah, there's nothing magical about the 40-day workout. It comes, and Neil, I like this question because, when Pavel said, for the next 40 days, pick these 5 exercises and do them. And some people interpret that as the next 40 days exactly. January is 31 days, so January 1st, 31st, and then I guess, November 8th or 9th, you would finish the workout. Again, it's calendar math, so I always get a little lost there at the end. I did it 5 days a week for 8 weeks, and at the end of the 22nd workout, I had already nailed all my goals. But I stuck with it because it was a 8-week program, and I liked it. You'll notice that the Armor Building Formula is an 8-week program, with the first 2 weeks being kind of a orientation, 6 focused weeks, and then I tell you to do what? Do something else. I got to tell you, Neil, I think, so Tim Anderson and I, we have this joke about Original Strength, which is his mobility program, and Easy Strength, which is my basic strength training program. They go together like peas and carrots. Well, what else goes together with peas and carrots is Armor Building Formula and Easy Strength. So ABF for 8 weeks, Easy Strength for 8 weeks, ABF, Easy Strength. It goes really well. Exactly for the reason you say that, Neil. When I started training a little bit smarter, following Tommy Kono's advice, this is when I met Tommy. This is at the Nationals, and I had just won, so yay for me. One of the things that you realize when you see that picture is that Olympic lifting, does favor a little bit shorter stature. So Tommy, he was brilliant. He used to think, if a weightlifting meet's coming up 8 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, even 12 weeks from now, you become an Olympic lifter. And maybe if you do it like I do with my coach, Dave Turner, Dan, there's an Olympic lifting meet in 10 weeks. So what that means is I will spend 8 weeks getting myself in shape for this meet, and the last 2 weeks trying to peak and take care of business. Peaking for an Olympic lifting meet includes making sure you pack your shoes, you have, your weightlifting card. I have stories about all this. And you practice just getting into those deep positions, and you save it for the platform, save it for the platform, save it for the platform. So I used to come back into the gym so I lifted on Saturday. On Monday, I had an Olympic lift. Now when I come back in the gym on Monday, I'm a bodybuilder, and I train for 8 weeks or whatever as a bodybuilder until the next Olympic lifting meet. So I don't know what it is, Neil, but I also think that's why I think it's so important for a youth athlete to do multiple sports. So when I was young, football, wrestling, hurdles, and discus throwing in the spring. In the summer, I played CYO basketball, and then I played keeper in a soccer team. Well, when you do the math, it works out, let's see if I have this right. So 32 weeks a year, that's 4 times 8. And then you had those other 20 to prepare yourself. So like even in wrestling, when you walk off the football field after your last game and the wrestling coach says, practice starts on Monday. First off, if you lost your last game and the coach says practice starts on Monday for wrestling, there's a 5-letter word that I would like to say, SUCKS. That is one of those things where your heart just sinks, because the hardest football practice of all time is the easiest wrestling practice of all time. I got to tell you, when wrestling season ended, usually with me being pinned, track season started on the following Monday, and you can't just, even though wrestling gets you in great condition, I still had to work on the techniques of the discus and the hurdles in high school. So it naturally built in these waves by going like that, 8 weeks of the real heavy meat of the season, at least in the high school setting, and a couple of week prep. And then of course it'd be a little bit of time after the school year and a little bit of time, we would start football a little bit earlier because just the number of things you have to learn. But Neil, I think you've figured out my secret. The reason 40 days, 8 weeks is because it works. And frankly, you can ask my coach. My coach's his name is Scott. After about 2 months of me being on a program, after about 6 weeks, I email him and say, I need some variation. I'm getting bored. Sometimes the variation is simple. Go from the incline bench to the bench press. The last time the variation was do both the incline and the bench press. So I love it. So great question, and I hope that helped. Thank you. Okay, so James has a question. It's kind of fun. I've been listening to your podcast and just recently got a subscription to Dan John University, danjohnuniversity.com. Over the last 8 months, I have done a combination of basic lift movements, swing, kettlebell deadlift, goblet squat, chest press, kettlebell row, shoulder press, bicep curl, tricep push down, lat pull down. I also do a 2-mile walk on treadmill at 2.8 miles per hour at 4% incline for the majority of the time. Kettlebell and dumbbell workouts are split in 2. He also does some farmer walks, planks, rotation movements, and overhead march randomly. I do each workout twice a week, so it's a 6-day-a-week workout plan. Good. I feel now I'm really beginning to improve cardiovascular fitness so I can progress in strength training. If I do ABC 3 times per week, how should I complement that program and keep up on all the different lifts and movements? Thanks. His name is James, 45-year-old male, currently 305 pounds with a goal weight of 250. So one of the things, I'd recommend to you, James, is especially at 305, I hope you're having some help with a medical professional. The first thing I would do with you is, if I were your coach, is I would send you off to a medical doctor, a dentist, and an eye doctor, just to make sure everything's humming okay. And there might be some interventions that can help you. I don't know what they are. I know it's hard to, it's hard for me to recommend eating a lot of vegetables, raw vegetables, to somebody if they have 8 cavities. So, that would be something I would recommend first. I would say overall, you're doing a lot of good things here, but I think you're doing too much. Over at the site, you have access to the workout generator. Why don't you go into the workout generator and plug in the equipment you have and how many days a week you'd want to work out? If I were you, James, I would hold back on the armor building complex until you're under your sub 300. That's only 6 pounds away, and it's real easy to do with, knowing your calories. And at 350 pounds, with a goal of what you said, 250. Hang on just a second, gentle listener. I'm just doing something I'm not good at. I'm sure my daughters, if they saw me, would laugh because they know how bad I am at this. So, I mean, you can be in the low 3,000s. Let's just say 3,100 calories, 3,200 calories, to get yourself down to 250. That's a fair number of calories. My coach me has on 250. Pardon me, 250. No way. 2,500 calories a day, down from 2,600 calories a day. So you do need caloric restriction. You do to get to your goal. I love your treadmill idea. When I first read it, I hadn't yet read your body weight. I like that treadmill idea you're doing. I think that's great. What I would suggest first, look at the 3 to 5 day a week options on the workout generator. One of the things you have to do if you do want to bring your body weight down, is you can't, Tom Furman's book, you can't outrun a donut, okay? You've got to have caloric restriction, but you also have to have rest periods. You got to make sure your sleep is dialed in, and I think if you start overtraining, it's going to impact that. James, once you get to sub 300, I would like you to think about just doing either the Easy Strength for Fat Loss protocol or the Armor Building Formula for Fat Loss protocol. You can find the Easy Strength there. It's right there in the generator. The big thing is the post-workout walk, and you've already got that covered. I can't recommend ABC 3 times a week really to anybody. The Armor Building Formula at most is 2. Now I do, in the Armor Building Formula 2 book, I do have that one program I gave to the guy who wanted to do the ABC 3 times a week. But you'll notice the Monday workout is only like 5 to 10 rounds. And we did that because he's a busy father of 2, and that's the amount of time he had on Mondays to work out. So we went with that. But it worked so well, I left it as a template in the book. I hope that helped. James, also, I want you to reach out to me on the forum over at DJU, because I do want to see how your progress is going, okay? Make sure you do the @ symbol with my name on there. It'll pop right up, okay? Thank you, and good luck to you on this journey. Well, we have a question from Rich. Really enjoy the ABC, and I want to adapt it to Tactical Barbell's base template. Tactical Barbell has a number of really good products, and I like them. Obviously, it's the only thing tactical I do nowadays is tell the neighbor's dog not to poop on my lawn, but so I don't necessarily need it. But essentially, you do 5 weeks of strength endurance training, followed by 3 weeks of strength training before moving into a specialized protocol. How would you program something like the ABC into a base building program? The first 5 weeks of strength endurance is 3 sets of 20 and build up to 3 sets of 50 by week 5. What would you offer for someone who wants to try and incorporate the ABC into a similar progression? So there's 2 phrases that we use in American football. One is dance with the girl who brung you. And the other phrase you often hear, and it's a little inappropriate, so hide your children's ears. If you dance with 2 girls, you don't go home with either. Sexist phrases, I apologize, I'm a horrible person. But it's really hard for anybody to take this program and add to this program. I remember someone telling me, and I just was talking about Tommy Kono, that they were adapting Tommy Kono's programs because they wanted to do. And I thought to myself, Tommy Kono, who is Mr. Universe, multi-gold medal winner in the Olympics, so many world record holders, considered probably, I think he's considered the greatest Olympic lifter of the last century. And you're going to fix Tommy's programs. And I remember I was on the call. In fact, I just talked to this person recently, and I thought to myself, I actually really should call the person back up and say, how'd that work? If you're going to do Tactical Barbell, if they have a place for extra conditioning, I would only do 1 ABC round a week at most if you're doing a whole other program. And at the same time, Rich, the whole time you're doing this, remember that, and I like tactical barbell stuff. I think it's very good, but that's a lot of work. I mean, you just said 3 sets of 20 building up to 3 sets of 50. I don't even know what the exercise is, but 3 sets of 50 and anything is a lot of work. So if you're going to do it, find a day after one of their workouts. So same day, do some ABCs. Do it like I recommended my other client who had the busy schedule, on Mondays had to keep things tight. So we did 5 to 10 rounds of the armor building complex. Just do 5 to 10 rounds and just see how it goes. Because remember, Rich, the key to everything is recovery. As we're talking to earlier in this podcast about, after 55, recovery is really hard. It's just hard to do because you're 55. Now, whenever I say something like that, I always get these people, I'm 68 and I recover from everything, nothing. And that might be true. But I was just in Disneyland looking at people in my age cohort move around, many of them on motorized vehicles. I just have to say, in my time, I spend a lot of time at the senior center. I enjoy my time at the senior center. But there's a lot of people who, not necessarily the people dancing on Thursday nights, but the other people come in, they really struggle just getting from their car to the center. And I just, recovery is the key. And as you age, it gets even more difficult. So just make sure you can recover from the tactical barbell template first, then add. Okay? Thank you. Is that it? Wow. Okay, that's it for our questions this week. Remember, if you have a question, please send them to me, podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I do my best to answer each and every one. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.